You're up.
Welcome, everybody. This is David Slater, and I'm the Executive Director of the Clay County Economic Development Council. We have Brian Noller, who's the Director of the Northland Career Centers, and we are presenting with Elena Martin, who is the College and Career Center Director for Winnetonka High School. Go Griffs. And the presenters today are Scott and Jason. They own a couple of restaurants, but we're going to let them go. Scott, why don't you take off first, since you're the hometown guy, since we're in Flat City today, and tell us a little bit about what you got going on.
All right, Elena, David, and Brian, thanks for inviting me to be a part of my first annual ever virtual career fair. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have a chance to just talk a little bit about our business and sort of how we got here. So David, is now the time where I do a little spiel?
You can give a little spiel, but also while you're giving that spiel, y'all out there in the audience, give your questions in the chat box to Elena so we can have questions besides the ones that Brian and I have to come up with, because we're kind of boring.
Yeah, Scott, let me tell them this real quick. We have 44 participants on with us now that are either students, teachers, or individuals. If you're an individual out there and you're trying to adjust a microphone or a camera, it's not going to work. You're only going to see the presentation from our panelists and our moderators. So the best way to interact, and we had a session just a little bit ago with over 51 questions from students. So if you have a question about entrepreneurship, hospitality, or restaurant ownership, this is a great time to ask it. If you'll ask it, Elena will definitely, Ms. Martin will definitely put it through the chat or through the Q&A. So yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, so like I said, it's an honor to be with everybody today, as well as to be here with Jason and have a chance to just share a little bit about how we got to this point. So today, my name is Scott Umscheid, and we have a restaurant off Ambassador Drive, right by Kansas City International Airport, called Scott's Kitchen and Catering. July 10th this summer, we turned 3 years old, so we're sort of a new business still. It feels like, well, some days it feels like we've been around for quite some time. So let's see, in 1988, I started out in the restaurant business with Applebee's. I got a job at a restaurant. I didn't even know there was more than one. It was really great experience right after I moved to Kansas City, and I ended up spending 13 years with that company. Throughout time, I opened up 50 restaurants across the United States, had a chance to go through management training and get into actually working at the home office for a period of time as well. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn with a great local hometown company. When I started, there were less than 50 Applebee's. So that was really great. And I've also worked with a few other casual dining brands, the Cheesecake Factory, Old Chicago, and Zio's Italian Kitchen. When you get to my age, you've got a few laps on the old odometer there. So all those were great opportunities for me to learn systems, procedures with world-class companies, and learn sort of how to interact with people and guests and run a good shift in the restaurant. Most recently, I've been more on the independent side, learning about how to, just learning more about what it's like to have a business. And for the last 5 years before we opened our restaurant here, I was in sales with US Foods. And so that got me the opportunity to walk in the front or back door of 50 or 75 of my local restaurant customers and get a chance to really learn from them about what it took to be successful as a business. So that's about as short as I can make it.
You're up, Jason.
All right, first of all, thank you to all of you for inviting both us, or myself and Scott, to do this. And thank you to all the attendees. It's wonderful as a long-term, lifelong member of the restaurant industry, entrepreneur, to see so many people that are interested in the same career path. So congratulations and thanks for listening. And my background is a little bit like Scott's in some ways, but I'm going to try to extenuate the other side of the element as well. I actually grew up on a farm. We had a 1-acre garden on the farm. My family canned everything. One year we would butcher a steer. The next year we'd butcher a hog. And so we grew up on farm food, and that's kind of how we all began and everything. Loved restaurants, loved food. Always did things on the side. When Topsy's was big, we used to make our own popcorn and sell popcorn. We would roast whole hogs. We would do all kinds of barbecue things, experimented on a lot of different things. When I was 12 years old, my family opened the first corner cafe restaurant in Riverside. Like Scott, it was about a 40-seat restaurant at the time. We were only open Monday through Fridays, and we just served breakfast and lunch, and that's all we did. From there, we just continued to expand and grow. I left after college. I went to Mizzou, graduated with a degree in finance, went to a restaurant chain in Ohio, was there for about 8 years, came back. We opened up our location in Liberty and then opened up another one in Independence. Currently, we have about 16 managers, about 350 employees. So unlike being in the kitchen every day when I started, I'm now I'm in an office here and kind of away from the restaurant a little bit. And I get to deal with all of the other things. As Scott says, as you're an independent, you realize that it's not just about the food. You have to actually operate a business. And so I get to deal with all the problems that no one wants to deal with. They all come to me. So that's kind of my background.
Elena, you're up. You got a question in there.
All right, Lizzie asked, how many years does it take to own your own business?
Okay, so Lizzie, great question. For me, I took a long time in my life. It was always a goal to have my own business, but I really didn't take the action necessary until recently. So for a long time, it was just talk. And I say that only now. I was always serious about it, but I wasn't exactly for sure how to get started. And then of course, life comes along and there's just all kinds of things that might get in the way of you taking action for it. But once we decided to actually get things going for Scott's Kitchen, it really actually, once we got a plan in place, it didn't take very long at all. It took about 6 months to go through the preparation and sort of legal obligations to actually go ahead and get a lease signed and a restaurant open.
Yeah, from my side, I would say it really depends on the level that you want to be at. Obviously, if you're just starting out, restaurants have a high tendency of failure. So I would encourage you to go to work for a restaurant. Find a good leader that you can go to work for and someone that you can learn a lot from and gain all that knowledge. As Scott said, I mean, he spent years and years on the corporate side of restaurants where they have lots of systems in place, lots of fail safes that can help you and educate you in terms of preparing yourself for when you do step out. Because there is a whole lot of holes and gaps and things that you don't expect and things you aren't prepared for when you get up and running. The restaurant industry is a wonderful industry because there are so many different ways to get in. Everything from the summer fairs, selling stuff on a very small scale, the food trucks, all these various ways that you can do it, all the way up to full-blown 7 to 10,000 square foot, $5 to $7 million restaurants, and everything in between. So it's an easy way to get in, and there's a lot of ways to fail. And so the more you can educate yourself and be prepared for some of those and surround yourself with people that have that experience on the things that you don't know, the more likely you are to be successful at it.
Thank you. So Trinity asked, what is it like starting your own business? And what are some tips you would give to someone who is trying to start their own business? And then to piggyback on that a little bit, Sarah said that she is a high school student trying to start her own bakery. So maybe some advice that you would give to someone starting at such a young age.
Okay, so I think actually Jason really nailed both of those questions pretty good with the remarks that he just had. There's nothing, so as he said, the failure rate in any new operation is daunting. And so the way to hedge yourself against that is to get as much experience and knowledge as you can and surround yourself with mentors that will guide you through not only the steps, the actual specific steps in doing it, but also will make sure that you have your ducks in a row, your business plan in place, your all of those things necessary to launch successfully. Specifically, when it comes time to actually getting started, there's resources. It's actually very tricky to get the specific resources and know what's the checklist of how to actually get your bakery started. You start out locally with whatever city you're in. For example, we're here in the Kansas City, Missouri district or jurisdiction. Then your local health department. Then you also work with the state and then the federal government to go through a long list of things that you need to go ahead and get prepared to actually operate your business legally. Again, can't echo enough the opportunity if you have a baker that not only can teach you and mentor you in your baking skills, but also can share with you the steps that they've taken to get there specifically, is a great place to start. It's probably not what you want to hear maybe, but it definitely will increase your odds of success.
All right, I'll throw a few more things in here. One, you have your local EDC and various organizations like this one that provide lots of opportunities and information to help you do that. But I'm going to get even to something more fundamental than that. And that is that there's a few things that I would recommend. One is, write this down for those of you at home. Look up 21 Suggestions for Success by H. Jackson Brown. We have this poster hanging in our office, and it's really applies to all parts of your life. And this is a very good guidepost for you to look at and to always consider the things that are on this list, whether it's in business, work, whatever you may do. Secondly, if you're really going to look at something bakery, one of the things that's always interesting, and we hear it all the time, and we did the same thing, which is, you make something and it's really good, and everybody tells you how good it is, and they want you to bring it to all the family events. And then it's a big difference to go from that to being able to sell it to somebody. It has to be really good for people to want to pay money for it, beyond just being what all your friends tell you is good. And even beyond that is you have to come up with something that is craveable, so that people will, while they're eating it, are already thinking about the next time they're going to come back to your restaurant or your stand or your bakery to want to order that again and to share that with everybody. And that's a challenge, to really focus in and make your stuff so good that it's craveable. And that's the challenge, because ultimately there's lots of competition for anything. If you want to open up a chicken restaurant right now, good luck to you. Taco restaurant, pizza restaurant, you better make sure that your product is better than everybody else's. It has to be amazing. And I think that oftentimes people look at it and go, well, I want to do this for myself, and I want to do this because it sounds fun or interesting. You better be ate up by it, and you better be really good at it if you're going to be successful. So there's a few tips of advice there.
I'm just glad that I ate lunch before this presentation, because I can think of craving from both places. So very good stuff you guys serve. So thank you for that.
Thank you, guys. Jackson asked if you guys went to culinary school, and then Kaylee asked how long you have to go to school to be a chef, and if you have to be certified to be considered a chef.
You want to take that one, Scott?
So I did not. So I went to 2 years of Johnson County Community College studying business. It was of interest to me to follow the culinary path, and I did talk with them about the program, but ultimately did not pull the trigger. As I told you, I just actually caught a rocket that was taking off with the Applebee's company, and took me really through, kind of like college, or maybe, well, I won't say it was the same, and nor did I walk away with a degree on that, but it was extreme. It was a master's course in a lot of different ways of not only just the restaurant industry, but business. Sort of my time at the Cheesecake Factory is actually where I sort of got almost an education in terms of becoming a chef with all of the wide variety of from scratch items, the giant volumes that went through there, and the amount of just extremely high caliber restaurant professionals that I got to work with were both ways that I got to really learn not only the passion, but also the skills necessary to be successful from the culinary standpoint. So do you have to get certified to be a chef? You know what? People will debate about that probably for years to come. Okay. I do not have a title I do not have a sheet of paper that says that I graduated from a culinary school. I can tell you that I wish that I did, not because I don't believe that what I'm doing today. I just think that any chance that I could have taken for more education would have only helped me to be more well-rounded and more understanding of not only my industry, but also the world. With that being said, I don't think that you have to graduate with a degree to be a chef. I think that over time, when you prove your skills and you work under another chef through the platoon system, then ultimately you can have your own kitchen and brigade, and you'll be recognized as that.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Obviously, it's nice. The one thing about it, it's going to get your foot in a door. And depending on what your career choice is, I mean, I want people to realize that the restaurant industry, the food industry in general, is much broader than just the local restaurants. I mean, as Scott mentioned, he had worked for US Food, which is one of the big supply houses here in town. You have suppliers, distributors, salespeople. We have our accounting firm that handles us only exclusively does restaurant groups. So they do about 40 restaurant groups in the Midwest. So, I mean, you have an accountant that specializes in the industry, and you can specialize in lots of things. Everything, again, we're not even talking about the healthcare side of food, right? And all the nutritionists and all the various elements, the institutional cooking, the hotel side of it. There's so many different aspects. So, obviously if food is your lane that you really love about it, then I would agree that a culinary degree and honestly working for great chefs and great restaurants is a great pathway. But from our perspective, I don't have a culinary degree. I have a finance degree and a business side. And obviously, if you're going to operate a large operation, that's a little bit more applicable in that situation. But again, if I was looking to go, hey, I want a 20-seat restaurant and I'm making everything in it, then absolutely. But I will tell you, though, that you never stop learning, even after your degree, because everything is always changing. Flavor profiles, trends, all those things change, and you have to stay on top of those things. And you're not going to get that, in my case, 30 years removed from being in high school and college. That's not going to be the case. But again, there are things out there, and we use them all. The Culinary Institute, this one's the Flavor Bible I'm holding up here. And that obviously can help you in a lot of ways of understanding, again, how do you make craveable food that people love and want to come back and keep eating? And that having the taste and knowing what's good and what actually sells is not an easy thing to do. There are lots of chef restaurants that have failed, sometimes in the first year or two. And there are lots of people that had never been in the restaurant business that are highly successful, and it can go both ways. So, again, I think if food is your thing, culinary school is a great way and a great basis to begin from, but that's not the end all. That's just the beginning.
Thank you guys so much. Isabella asked, what is the most interesting thing that you've learned in your job?
Jason is so much better at answering these questions than I am. Okay, so what is the most interesting thing in my job? I think Jason sort of hit on it, but you have to continue to learn every day. You have to continue to keep yourself challenged. You have to have an open mind. You have to listen more than you speak, and that's not always easy to do. So from here, I could just get very sarcastic and funny with some very, very interesting things that I've learned on a daily basis, but I won't.
The one thing I will say to that is that when you deal with the public, just to give some of you an idea, we may serve 8 to 10,000 people a week in each restaurant. So we're serving 1.2 million meals a year. We come across everything. I mean, there's anything you could imagine that you think you've heard of. It goes beyond that when you're dealing with the public. So that's the one thing about it. It's that always new challenges every day. I think that looking back on it, what I wish I would have known 30 years ago. Okay, so where you guys are now, one of them is I would have learned Spanish. I skipped Spanish, and I regret that because obviously there's lots and lots and lots of workers in restaurants that speak Spanish. And if you're a manager or an employee, anything, to have that skill is a godsend in a lot of ways. Number two, I would have taken a lot more psychology degrees, or a lot psychology courses, I should say, and psychiatrists. The one thing about it, when you're dealing with people, employees as well as customers, knowing how to deal with people, and obviously being a counselor and all these other things that you deal with, it's well beyond what you might imagine. We had an example. We had a customer die in the bathroom of one of our restaurants. Older gentleman, gone in, didn't come back out. His wife was waiting outside. I had to be the one to go talk to her about it and sit with her while her family came to get her. These are things you're just not prepared to handle when every day you're trying to make biscuits and gravy and pies and all these other things. There are lots of elements that will surprise you when you're in business for yourself that you are never prepared for. But again, psychology and Spanish would be two things I would go back and do again.
That is crazy. I'm going to piggyback off of that a little bit. Sarah had asked earlier if you could go back to when you first started your restaurant, what is one thing that you would change about your restaurant?
You want this one, Scott?
Oh man. I'm not ready for that.
All right, I'll answer it on our behalf. I don't think there's anything that we would have changed. Obviously, like all things, you have to be very flexible because things change all the time. I'm just going to use our current situation today, right? Look at 2020. You have COVID, you have elections. In our case, in the industry, even current as of yesterday and today and this week, we have local jurisdictions that are imposing or applying new rules and new changes on you that can absolutely impact your industry and your business. So the reality is that the best advice I would say is uncertainty is opportunity in disguise. And you always have to be open, and you always have to be willing to change or do things different and or be flexible. And if you're rigid and you're not very flexible and you don't learn on the fly and you can't make fast decisions, the restaurant industry, hospitality industry is really not for you. But if you thrive on that, if you like the chaos of it all, and most students go to work in restaurants, what was it, 50-70%, I think, at some point work in a restaurant. You find out really quickly whether that's something you want to do or not. And it's not good or bad. I mean, people choose what path they follow. I had a finance degree. I worked one summer in a bank downtown. I hated every minute of it. I stared at the clock all day, waiting for break time, waiting for time to go home. And I thought, this is the most miserable thing I could ever do. And so once you kind of realize that that's the type of lifestyle you want to live, then I think it's great. I look back at the Corner Café and we say about changing something. The reality of it is that I don't think so, because we are what we are today because of what we were, and we adapted and changed as time goes by. We're obviously a very traditional restaurant, and we never want to lose sight of what we are and what we have been. I have a daughter that's probably younger than many of these people that are here right now. And she's like, hey, Dad, why don't you do smoothies? And why don't you do bubble tea and all these other various crazy things that are very popular and trendy right now? And I go, honey, our customers only drink dark black coffee. That's all they want. They don't want any of this other stuff. So you have to know who your customers are and also be able to adapt and change us over time. So I don't think I would change anything in terms of our operations.
Wow, that's a great answer. So I would say that, not that I would change anything besides the fact that I would continue to trust the plan that I put together and the instincts that were the instincts that come from the confidence of the plan that you started with. So maybe said another way is worry less, follow the plan more, continue to execute to what it is that you said you're going to do. And then again, of course, be open to change, as Jason said. The other thing is I probably would have had 5 more people on my team to get started because right out of the gate, I needed to surround myself with more people that were able to help us to get launched. And in the beginning, I didn't think I could afford it. Maybe I couldn't afford it, but I also couldn't afford not to have those people together to make sure that we could get off to the right start.
Thank you. So we have had several students ask both, what is the most difficult part of your job and what is the favorite part of your job?
Okay, so I like this one. I like this question a lot. My favorite part is playing restaurant every day. I get a chance to play restaurant, to interact with not only my staff, my guests, and it is family. And it is extremely rewarding in the hospitality business to be able to finish, from start to finish, produce a product that begins today, or for us, some of it last night, and to see the smile on someone's face executing it, and to hear them rave about how much that they enjoyed it. Not just the flavor, the taste, but also the way that they enjoyed the friendship and hospitality from our staff. Okay, the other stuff, as a business owner, figuring out why the toilet's leaking, but not really knowing how to be a plumber. Wondering, well, just all of the other things, not knowing specifics about taxes or some things on handling payroll. Of course, all of these things, there are professionals out there that you need to, that we use, and we're fortunate to have that are business partners of ours that are their expertise. But you still can't get away from a lot of those as a small business owner. Kind of like Jason said, being a psychologist, a market analyst, a purchasing professional, and a lot of times a fortune teller. Those are the things that are a little bit more challenging. And the more you get in the business, the more success that you have, the harder it is sometimes to stay close to those things that you like. And so what I like to do is balance those things and continue to replicate items that someone else can do and learn from. So at the same time, I can still stay close to playing restaurant every day.
Yeah. Okay. The things that I like, I would say that, the one thing about being in business is that you really have to commit to being the best that you can be. There's no one there to push you. You don't have a boss telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. You really have to be very committed. Scott mentioned it kind of earlier, which is you have to be disciplined. You have to have a plan, as he referred to it, and you have to have goals that you're working the plan all the time. I would say that that's a big part of it. The thing that I like about it is that having the opportunity to help others. If you do not like to help other people, if you don't like serving both your staff members as well as customers, then don't get in this industry. I mean, you are doomed. You're guaranteed to fail. So you really have to care about others. My favorite thing is honestly is promoting staff members to be managers, because those are my favorite moments, because you realize that for some of these people, you have changed their entire course of their life. Because the one thing about it, if you've been an employee at something and you're now being entrusted as a manager, and hopefully it's at a place where they just don't hand managers out, like you actually have to earn it to be a manager, that you have now changed that person's life trajectory for forever. I mean, you know, they will from that point forward always be a manager at some level, even in the future. I used to be a manager. And so, you know, having those opportunities to change people's lives, I think is very critical and important. And I think that's my favorite part. I would say also knowing the role that we play as a restaurant in other people's lives. Everything from marriage proposals to wedding parties, to family get-togethers, all these things where people come together and we're a small part of helping facilitate that, I think is a wonderful thing. We hear all the time people come back to us say, oh man, you know, my wife and I used to come here and eat every single day. And then you wouldn't see the gentleman for a year. And he would come back a year later and his wife had passed away. And it was too hard for him to come back in because of the memories. But now he comes back to remember the good times. Those are the stories that make it all worthwhile when you realize the impact that you have on others. And I think that's the best part of it. The worst part of it, kind of the same thing. I don't like giving up on people. And so, you know, I don't like firing someone, but I always look at it and go, I didn't fire somebody, they fired themselves. So if you don't take care of people and you don't do those things, you're going to get yourself, you know, fired. And that's the part that I hate more than anything else. And if you ever like that part, you're in the wrong business.
So Elena, we have about 7-8 minutes left. So I want to combine a couple questions too. And I think a couple of these questions came from our culinary arts students in the building. And then if you want to ask maybe 2 more, and then we'll wrap up, and we'll give a shout out to the kids we didn't get to. So the question I would ask guys is, from what they have, is how did you determine your exact menu or what food to sell? And then how do you, one other question kind of combines is, how do you determine a pricing strategy on what to price the food for the customers?
We'll let Jason start with that one.
Okay, what was the first part? The first part was, how do you decide the menu?
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is that I'll use my exact case, so I won't use it as a general statement for everybody. In our case, I mentioned early on that we had grown up on a farm. I grew up on a farm. We canned everything, did a lot of this home cooked food. So that was very near and dear to our hearts. There were a few other things. So we obviously knew that kind of food. There was a restaurant where the original Corner Café was. It went out of business. It sat there empty for 6 months. And we decided, why don't we just go ahead and open up a little cafe, breakfast and lunch, and we'll figure it out on our own. And so there were a few items that we actually liked. If anybody has been to the Corner Café, there was a place called the Dairy Y in Smithville. It's long gone. Used to be down by the cemetery. They used to do hand-breaded tenderloins, and we love their tenderloins. There was a place where the Hy-Vee is on 64th Street. Used to be a little shopping center there at a place called Suzy Q's, and they would do these breaded onion rings and Philly cheesesteaks. And so those were some of the core items from restaurants that we liked, as well as the stuff that we had done. Everything else kind of came naturally. You know, we're kind of most known for cinnamon rolls. People talk about our cinnamon rolls. They were kind of an afterthought when we started. They were just something that we did. We used actually our leftover dough from our dinner rolls and would make some cinnamon rolls up for the next day. And so it was an afterthought. And then people started saying, wow, you're that place with the cinnamon rolls. And now they become huge. And now we do lots and lots of cinnamon rolls. But that was more organic. So in terms of the menu development, I think it starts with a few things that maybe you're really good at that connect with the type of restaurant that you are. And then from there, I think it's organic. And you figure out what sells, what people will want to buy.
Okay, so for us, specifically about 12 years ago, I got sort of really bit by the bug of competition barbecue. Now, I didn't, so I really got fired up. My very first competition that I ever did, I have no idea. I was out there with professionals, but in the chicken category, my chicken that I cooked got first place. And since then, I've never got first place in chicken in any other competition I've ever done. But that one, it happened. And I followed a recipe that I found. I found a real awesome way to cook this chicken. I had no idea how to do it. But that got me fired up about competitive barbecue. And so from there, I've worked on doing barbecue competitions. And by doing that, then you get to sort of this mastery level of smoking meat. And so that's a very specific thing. So for my restaurant, I wanted to have something to do with the smoked meat, and I wanted to throw my hat into, as Jason said earlier, being some of the best food that you can buy as it relates to that. And but specifically for our location, I mean, when you're planning your menu or the food that you're going to do, yes, everybody can make a great pasta sauce or a meatloaf or kind of what Jason was talking about earlier, a good pie. But what I can tell you is you have to make a menu that is for the neighborhood or for the demographic of the people that are going to buy food from you. So you may have, so I'm going to make this up a little bit, but let's just say that that I had the best Cajun menu and training, and I'm from Louisiana and da 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 da. But if not a lot of people in my neighborhood right here are going to come to eat jambalaya pasta every single day, then it doesn't matter if it's the best pasta north of New Orleans. You're not going to sell it. And if you're not selling it, you're not in business. So you really need to know your target audience, and you have to build the restaurant based upon that. So for all those years when people would say, when I would say I want to open a restaurant, people would say, well, what is it going to be? My first sort of question would be, well, where is it? Because then I know who my customers are going to be, and then I'll tailor a menu that's going to be towards that. Lastly, in terms of how to price the menu, there's very specific tools that are available for you out there in terms of costing a menu item down to the very last penny. For example, we have a promotion going on that we just put together for some Thanksgiving meals. And before I ever started of even thinking about promoting that for people, we got down to what it costs to put exactly everything into the containers, including the containers. And so you need to know the cost of what you're going to do. You need to know the margins that you're going to make. And that helps you to predict the sales that you predict to do, which then gives you a break even.
Thanks, guys. Elena, do you want to do one more question of your choice, and then I'll do a wrap up with a shout out to the kids. We may not get to the questions we don't get to.
Absolutely. So there are still several students who are just kind of asking for advice on starting their own business. So if you wanted them to walk away with one piece of information that is advice for them starting a business, what would that one piece be?
Ooh, you want to do this one, Scott, first?
Yes, I will. So, just very quickly, what I would say is never, never lose your passion, your excitement, the enthusiasm, and all that it takes to actually go for your dreams, right? So all of these people, we've been told throughout our lives that anything is possible, and really it is. But at the same time, you got to back that up with knowledge, experience, capital. So read books, watch other people that are successful, ask questions, do things like this that you're doing today. Reach out to those resources. I would lastly say that if any of you would like any further to chat any further about the business, feel free to stop in anytime. And I would love to connect with you more specifically as it relates to your goal. So we have, somebody's going to do it. And if it's going to be you, then you'll know, because you've done all the things you need to do to be successful.
Okay, and on my side, I'm going to start by saying I see a lot of these Q&A questions, and there are a lot of good questions. That's a lot longer than I can say in 30 seconds. Like Scott, you can stop in. I would say the easiest way to contact me is through email. I'm going to tell you right now, it's Jason at, and this is one word, thecornercafe.com. You can also send that through comments to our website. I will absolutely take the time to answer any of these questions at all. As Scott said, you have to have a sincere desire to serve others, to work hard, to be trustworthy, to be honest, to be fair-minded if you're going to be successful in business, period. And especially if you're going to own your own business. There's an old saying, trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and a lifetime to repair. So whatever you do, you have to do it to the best of your ability, to be honest and forthright. You will make mistakes. You'll make bad choices and decisions. It's okay. You learn and you move forward from that. But again, I think it's so critical that, I'm going to use two real quick examples of two corporations that understand this better than anybody. And that's Disney, especially Disney World, and Apple Computers. They both understand that it's not, first of all, it's not about them as a business. It's about how you interact with their products, right? So if you're going to be in business, you have to fully be committed into how your customer interacts with your product. In our case, food and restaurants. And the one thing that they understand fully, I'll use a quick example. My daughter was 6 years old. We go to Disney World. She's got the little signature book, and she meets Rapunzel. And so as she's standing there next to Rapunzel, who's in her full outfit, she's looking up at her, wanting to get her signature. And what does Rapunzel say to her? The very first words. She looks at her and she sees that my daughter had her fingernails painted. And she says, "I wish my fingernails were as pretty as yours." And in that moment, Disney made her more important than a princess. And that can't be lost on you and your business. The impact that you have on others can never be understated. Because remember, long after people forget what you said or did or fed them, they'll remember how you made them feel. And that, above all else, is the most important thing in business. Take that away with you in everything you do in life. How you make people feel is more important than anything else.
Well, thanks, guys. So I'm going to give a shout out to Maddie, Jordan, Trinity, Ashley, Nolan, Jordan again, Maddie again, Jackson, and Trinity, Corey twice, and say thank you for your questions. There was this question sitting out there I want to wrap up with, and we were over time, but I love the question. I'm gonna challenge you guys with one word. Donovan asked, how does it make you feel when people like your restaurants? What was one word answer? That's all you get. How does it make you feel?
Two words: proud and humble.
Okay, fair enough. Scott? I love your restaurant, Scott. How does it make you feel, buddy?
Blessed.
Okay. Well, we have been blessed today for a fantastic day. We have been at this since 8 o'clock, 7:45 this morning with fantastic speakers, and you guys knocked it out of the park to finish off the day. So thank you for your time and your answers.
Yeah.
Elena, thank you for being a wonderful facilitator of the questions too. And thank you, David, for helping facilitate. But I'm going to wrap this thing up with my other computer. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you guys for organizing this for everybody.
You know what?
Yes, thank you.
We'll do it again, right? You guys, you game for doing this again?
And we may connect you with the kids that we didn't get their questions asked. So thank you for offering your information to them. Appreciate it.
That was wonderful.
And please go visit these two wonderful places in the Northland. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. That's a wrap.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.